much, Mohammed, and thanks everyone. What I thought I would do, there's half an hour for this slot, and people who know me know that I often do half an hour is about one sentence worth for me. So what I'm going to do is, rather than speak for half an hour, I'm just going to say some brief comments at the beginning, just to set the context of why myself and Fran are here this weekend, what we're hoping you get out of it, and what our aspirations are for the union. And I just want to touch on some of the big issues, but I thought it might be useful if you had the chance to actually ask me anything you want rather than sit and listen to me for half an hour. And I'd say that, feel free to ask any question you've got, any point you want to make, and I'd be delighted to hear what people have to say. I also wanted to add my recognition of Ratnam's service to the union. It's a tragedy that somebody who dedicates his life to public service, dedicates his life to the trade union, and then retires thinking that they now have some time to do other things in life, passes away. And it's one of those travesties that we live in a country where the government tells us we have to work longer and longer and longer. The Tories have plans to make the pension age 72. Now, my grandfather couldn't afford to retire. He worked till he was 76. He then finally retired. He died within 6 months. And it makes us remember, actually, the old saying, we don't it's work to live, not live to work, isn't it? And why we go to work is in order to be able to live, feed our families, enjoy ourselves, and look forward to some form of secure future. And I think Ratnam's story, his dedication to this union, he deserved and his family deserved so much more, and I wanted therefore to add to your tribute, Mohammed. And I also wanted to thank you both for what you've done for black members and all the people that you mentioned, because the great thing about PCS is we're not as big a union as we were because of the government's attacks, but we punch above our weight everywhere we go. Some of the people that were mentioned are not just known in our union, they're known in the TUC, they're known in other trade unions, because one thing PCS I think does better than most is we recognise that if a union is anything, it is about its members and its reps, it is your union, and it is about ensuring that when we go out and speak, that our union should look like the members that we actually represent. And some of the people that you paid tribute to at the beginning are out there all of the time, not just raising issues on behalf of our black members, but on behalf of women, disabled, LGBT+, but also all of our members who do such an important job. And it tells us a lot about what this union is about. And it's what I hope you all get out of this weekend, because the reason we do these things, and it's fantastic, it's good news and bad news. This was oversubscribed, more people wanted to come than we could let come. In a way, if the union gets bigger, we would like these to be far bigger events, but it also shows that we've got people who are keen, prepared to give up their weekends, and I thank you all for being prepared to come here and give up your weekend. But what will judge this as a success is that you enjoy it, you meet new people, you really think it's been a great 48 hours, but if you go back to where you've come, to your branches and your workplaces, and it inspires you to get involved, to think about becoming a rep or an advocate, talk to somebody else from an underrepresented group and encourage them to come on the next one of these that we run, and use this as a springboard to get involved. Because Fran and I will judge this a success if we see some of you at our conference next year or the year after. We see some of you get involved in your branches, because then we'll know that what you've learned and talked about this weekend is being put into practice, and that is what will make the union grow and get more and more healthy. And therefore it's probably worth me saying, I started in the civil service in 1980, I was 16. And I'm from the South Wales Valleys. You either got a job in the public sector or you went down the coal mines, basically, where I was. Most of my friends became coal miners. And I got in the DHSS, as it then was, it's the DWP now. I just about managed to get enough O-levels to get in, because in those days you had to have 5 O-levels to become an AO, and you had to have English and maths. I didn't have 5 O-levels, so I had to resit some. But I managed to scrape into the civil service in 1980. And the day I left to do my first day, I lived at home with my mother. She dressed me, I'm prepared to tell you, she dressed me in a hideous brown velvet jacket, a tie, my collar was done right, I looked ridiculous, and she sent me off to work, and she gave me a kiss, and she said it was her proudest day. And I said, what do you mean, ma'am, why is this your proudest day? And she said, because you've got a job in the civil service then. And I remember like it was yesterday. She said to me, you'll have a job for life, you'll be really well paid, you'll have a really, really good career, you'll have a great pension, and The people who live in this community will thank you for what you do on their behalf. Now, as the story goes, finding out my mother lied to me 5 times is a cross I've bore for ever since. But of course, my mother genuinely believed getting in the civil service was a really big thing. And you know what? Being in the civil service then, you did think you had a secure job, you did have a chance of promotion, your managers were able to treat you with a little bit of compassion and not just read what the book says they have to do if you've had a few days off sick. It was very different. And the other big difference was I worked in the then DWP, and when you went to work, your supervisor said to me on my first day, every minute you're here, Mark, your job is to help the person who comes into this office. You now fast forward to 2019, and we have public services that our members find incredibly difficult to work in. We don't welcome people into the offices these days, we're often trying to push them out. We're sending them to ring phone lines. We have draconian rules, whether it's in the Home Office, whether it's in the DWP, right across government, that actually mean the jobs we all love to do, we can't do. You know, I have never met anyone who takes any pleasure in sanctioning someone because you remove their benefits because they've fallen foul of the rule, when actually most of those people have fallen upon hard times. And that, I think, gives us the context of where we are today. Our union, and you as members working in public services, are some of the finest public servants in the land. Nobody recognises that. We never get the credit that other parts of the public service get. And because of that, governments, and particularly this one, it's not the only one, but this one in particular has used our unpopularity with the public, you know, this. So Nigel Farage last week can say he wants to take a knife to civil servants. You know, in this day and age, irresponsible language, but he gets away with it because he can talk about we're overpaid pen pushers and we need to take a knife to these people and we need to cut their numbers massively, is what Nigel Farage said. And actually, because the public don't know about the hard work that we do, saving lives, trying to get people, rehabilitate them in our justice system, trying to give them the help they need, helping them with taxes and the minimum wage, through education, through transport, through showing off some of the world's greatest sort of cultural things in our museums and in our galleries. We keep the country running, yet the government has cut our pay 11 years running. It's cut our pensions, so we now work longer, we pay more, we get less. It's robbing us of our redundancy rights, so if ever you need to take redundancy because your office is closing, and boy, our office is closing all around the country, they've cut those by 1/3. They've introduced some of the most draconian measures at work, that wherever I go, people often say to me, look, I do care about my pay and my job, but actually I care more about every day I feel bullied, I feel harassed at work, I feel I've got people breathing down my neck, I feel I've got targets that are very hard to meet. We deserve so much better. We deserve to have pay that doesn't mean 40% of our members who administer in DWP the benefits have to claim them because their pay is so low. We deserve to have proper promotion prospects. We deserve not to have discrimination at work. There shouldn't be a pay gap because of your race or because of your sex. There shouldn't be lack of opportunities if you happen to be disabled. This is the civil service. It should lead the way, and we deserve much, much better than we get. But this government does not have that in store for us. And therefore I wanted to sort of draw to a close before I take questions with really these thoughts. First of all, there's a general election coming. It's probably weeks away, it's certainly less than months away. Brexit looms on the horizon. Brexit in itself for our members throws up real uncertainties. We have thousands of members who are EU nationals who do not know what their status is in this country if we leave with a no-deal Brexit. We have family members who do not know where they stand if this country leaves on a no-deal Brexit. That doesn't even begin to touch on the hostility that is now created, where we see the rise, and you know this more than me, the rise of racism, the rise of discrimination, people feeling unsafe often to go out because we see Tommy Robinson being able to whip up anti-immigrant and racist sentiments in parts of our country. These are terrible times, but the government doesn't plan to make them better, they plan to make them worse. And if we leave with a no-deal Brexit, not only does every economist agree the economy will go into meltdown, the public services will face huge strains, there's already real worries about what it means. It also means uncertainties for individuals, and it means uncertainties about moving forward. But not only that, if on the back of this Boris Johnson gets re-elected, we know that he is already committed to further cuts in the civil service. cutting back your redundancy terms that we won back in the High Court, still suppressing people's pay and almost certainly seeking to privatise more and more of the jobs that we work in. So this election is arguably the most important that there will have been since 1979. The choice facing us could not be starker, between more cuts, more privatisation and more hostility, or a government who has worked with us, that has already in the last week announced in DWP alone, it will put 5,000 extra jobs into DWP, scrap universal credit and return to a more humane benefit system. They're working with us in HMRC for a fair tax system to ensure that people who should pay their tax pay and that people who should get things like the minimum wage are getting it. So there's a huge amount at stake for all of us, and all I would hope that people do in the coming weeks is look at why the union, for the first time ever, is advising members that whilst your vote is yours, you must vote how you feel is right for you and your family. We have a responsibility to ensure that not one of our union members goes to the ballot box without knowing what the difference between Jeremy Corbyn's government and Boris Johnson's government means for our members in every part of the public service. So these are hugely important times, and all of our futures are on the line. So I'm going to conclude, Mohammed, with this. In the context of your jobs, discrimination, racism, our pensions, our futures and our families' futures, I want to finish by calling in mind that this is Black History Month. And this is the month where we celebrate the achievements of black people, black individuals or collectives down the years, and say to ourselves that's something that we want to celebrate. Now there are so many people we could choose, there are so many people I could want to dedicate Black History Month to. The list is endless. But I'm going to dedicate it to people who are in this union. Because if anyone hasn't followed it, we reported yesterday, and we will again report next week, that we have had a group of workers on indefinite strike in this union now for 10 weeks. They've actually been on strike since January. They are majority, a massive majority, of black workers, many of them migrants. They're mainly women, and they are catering staff, cleaners, messengers, porters, receptionists and security guards. They work in the government's Bays department, that's the business department in Victoria Street in Whitehall, and they were all being privatised. They've been on strike because they don't get the London living wage, they didn't get sick pay, they didn't get proper holiday pay. Some of their colleagues on strike at the Foreign Office, their union, our union, is not even recognised by the management. And these people, and I dedicate to them, have just won probably one of the most stunning victories that this union has seen in 30 years. Because they have won 100% of what they went on strike for. Ooh. They're all getting a living wage. Some of these caterers were on less than £9 an hour living in London. They are all now going to get £10.55 an hour. Their supervisors will get an extra £1.54 on top. They will get holiday pay, they will get sick pay. Their union is now recognised and we will be able to negotiate on their behalf. And they go back to work, not just as what we often celebrate, heroic people who took the ultimate and went on strike. They're going back, they've won. And why I dedicate it to them is they won against all the odds. They're in a private sector for a start. It's bad enough in the civil service, but some of the private contractors, there may be some people here who work for private companies, they treat their staff appallingly. Some of them had 6 different employers in 6 years. Every time uncertain whether they would keep their job or what would happen to their terms and conditions. Since they went on strike, the membership of the union didn't just increase, it quadrupled. Imagine that. Imagine in your office going back on Monday and quadrupling the amount of PCS members there are. And people joined the union because they thought, at long last, there's a union that's listening to us. We didn't go in there and say, have a strike. They themselves decided they were fed up with the way they were treated. They went to the union supported them, and we now have what I hope will go on to become the future leaders of this union at all levels, because their story is against all the odds. They stood together, they toured the country, they went on strike, and they have won. And they haven't just won for themselves. Whoever now is employed by this company to work in there will get the London living wage. They'll get holiday pay, they'll get sick pay. So I finished really by paying credit to them, by paying credit to all of you for coming, paying credit for the people that we've talked about at the beginning, but ending with this simple message. The whole thing about a union is no one does it for us, no one does it for you, we do it for ourselves. You can have the best leaders in the world, or mediocre or terrible ones. What makes a difference in any union is, do our members stick together? Do we have people who speak up for them? And do they stick strong when they need to? And what you get out of this weekend is believing the union's listening to your concerns at work. If you give us ideas on things to campaign for that we haven't thought of, if you go back inspired, then we won't just see what's happened in days, we'll see it where you work, where you come from, and ultimately what that would give us is not only a better place to work, not only more security for you and your family, but actually that maybe we can look forward to a time where we can all enjoy going to work, we're treated on merit, we can find that we can get promoted and have a career, and we can actually be pleased and proud of working in a secure public service, not the one that so many of us work in at the moment. So thanks very much for coming. I'm happy to take any questions. It's great that you're here for this weekend. Let's remember those base strikers, and let's ensure what they've done we can do elsewhere, because we deserve it. Thanks very much.